I drove 8 hours for a fake family emergency, only to be stuck with bills in my name and my sister's kids, so I cut every cord they clung to, and what followed none expected. I got the call on a Tuesday. My sister's voice was shaking, like she'd been crying. She said there was a family emergency, that Mom was sick, and they needed me home. I didn't ask for details. I just packed, rescheduled my week, and started driving 8 hours straight through rain and traffic. I showed up tired, worried, and ready to help. That was my first mistake. The moment I stepped inside, the tone shifted. No one looked sick. No one looked worried. My sister was in sweatpants and a face mask, lounging on the couch like it was Sunday brunch. Mom didn't even get up from the dining table. She waved at me like I was the mailman and said, "Perfect timing. You can start with the groceries." I blinked. "Groceries?" She pointed to a long receipt. "Fridge is empty. You're paying, right? You make the most." Then my sister added, "And since you're here, we figured you could watch the kids for a few days. I need to recharge." She actually used that word, recharge, like I was a Tesla supercharger and she just needed to plug in. I didn't react. I just nodded. That's what I do. That's what they expect. "You don't have kids or a spouse," Mom added. "This is a great way for you to finally contribute." Then she handed me a stack of bills. My name was on all of them: utilities, streaming services, the security system I'd installed unpaid. I was apparently not just the errand boy, but the financier too. I smiled, said thank you, and reached into my backpack and handed her a folder. She didn't open it immediately. She just looked at me like I'd handed her junk mail. That's when I left quietly. No argument, no scene, just walked out the door. They didn't notice. I heard my sister say something like, "What's his problem?" As I stepped off the porch, in the car, I checked my phone. 10 unread notifications from the bank, all tied to accounts and services I'd set up for them. Some in my name, others just using my credentials. That's when the first layer of silence set in. Not the peaceful kind, the cold kind, the kind that slips over your shoulders and tells you, you were never wanted here. You were just tolerated, and even that had a cost. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat in the driveway of the house I grew up in and let the weight of every unpaid thank you and every weaponized silence settle around me. Then I started making quiet moves, and none of them noticed. I sat in the car, unmoving, watching the porch light flicker above the front door of the house I helped pay for. I started remembering, not one moment, all of them. They didn't blur together. They sharpened, like cuts. I remembered the Christmas. I bought everyone gifts, spending hundreds of dollars, and all I got was a regifted mug with a broken handle. I remembered birthdays where I was too busy to be invited. I remembered the time my sister needed help covering rent, and I wired the money the same day, only for her to post a meme calling me a desperate doormat a week later. I remembered the wedding. God, the wedding. Not hers, mine. The one they didn't show up to. Mom had a headache. Dad had a prior commitment. My sister forgot the date. I stood at the altar, one arm still healing from surgery, and looked out at a crowd of rented chairs, half empty, half embarrassed. Afterward, not even a text, just a forwarded message about a GoFundMe for someone else. I was never the son, never the brother. I was the ATM, the project manager, the fixer. I remembered the time I sent flowers on Mother's Day. My mom texted back, "Next time, just send the money." Every memory that returned came with a clarity I hadn't allowed myself before. Every insult passed off as a joke, every manipulation wrapped in guilt, every dinner where I picked up the check while they laughed behind my back. It was always the same pattern. I gave, they erased. I helped, they humiliated. I stayed quiet, they assumed I was fine. They didn't see me, not really, just what I could offer. Not a person, a pipeline, a tool, a ladder. And now that I was back after driving 8 hours because my sister screamed emergency, I was being handed a list of unpaid bills in my name and assigned the role of unpaid nanny while she recharged. That's when the shift happened. Not emotionally, strategically. I opened my laptop in the car, tethered it to my phone, logged into the shared utilities account, the one I'd set up so they wouldn't fall behind, canceled autopay, changed the password, and locked them out. I logged into the family's cloud storage, which my company managed the backend for, and killed their access. One by one, I pulled receipts, bank statements, access logs, the gifted iPad my niece used for school, still registered to my Apple account, the family plan on Spotify, mine. The grocery deliveries my mom assumed were some magical recurring miracle. They were tied to a credit card she never had the number for. Then I saw it, the mortgage. I'd co-signed it years ago, quietly. Because the rates are better with you on it, that's what Dad said. Now I was the only reason they still had the house, and they knew it. That's why they lied. That's why they baited me with the word emergency. Because they were drowning. And they thought I was still desperate enough for approval to be their lifeline. But this time, I wasn't. In that moment, staring at the soft glow of my dashboard, listening to the hum of the porch light flickering, I saw the truth for the first time without excuses or fantasy. I was not part of this family. I was their infrastructure, their emotional sewer system. Quiet, unseen, always working until it stopped. And now, I was done. Not in anger, not even in grief, just done. But I wasn't leaving empty-handed. I was taking the blueprint with me, the one they never bothered to look at, the one that showed just how deep my roots ran through their fake stability. Because if they thought this was me being dramatic, they hadn't seen anything yet. They built their comfort on my silent support, and now I was going to make sure they felt the full weight of its collapse. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was angry, that had already passed. I didn't toss, didn't replay the conversation, didn't even think about what they said, because by then, my mind had clicked into a different mode, cold, surgical, strategic. At 2:17 in the morning, I was already at my cousin Maya's house, sitting at her kitchen counter with my laptop open and coffee I didn't remember pouring. She saw it on my face, the stillness, the calculation, and didn't ask a single question. She just sat nearby with her own laptop, like we were coordinating war logistics, because that's exactly what it was. I began methodically, approaching this like any other technical project I'd handled throughout my career. The first target was obvious, the financial infrastructure I'd so carefully constructed for their convenience over the years. I pulled up the shared utility account on my laptop screen, the centralized billing system I'd designed specifically to prevent their chronic late payments, and the resulting service interruptions that always somehow became my emergency to fix. With surgical precision, I navigated through each automated payment, canceling them one by one: electricity, gas, water, internet, waste management, every recurring transaction that had quietly drained my accounts for months without so much as a thank you. I removed my credit card information entirely, then systematically changed all administrative passwords and security questions, effectively sealing them out of a system they'd grown completely dependent on but never bothered to understand. The entertainment subscriptions came next, a digital ecosystem of comfort I'd unknowingly subsidized for people who treated my presence at family gatherings like an unwelcome interruption. Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, Spotify Premium, all registered under my email address, all funded by my credit cards, all enjoyed freely by the same people who couldn't be bothered to save me a seat at their dinner table. I didn't just cancel the subscriptions, I methodically deleted every profile they'd de-created, every watch list they'd curated, every carefully organized playlist. Years of their digital preferences wiped clean in minutes, leaving nothing but blank login screens where their entertainment had once lived. The phone plan required a more delicate approach. 5 lines total, mine, both parents, my sister, and her husband Mark, all under a family plan I'd established years ago when their individual credit couldn't qualify them for decent rates. Rather than simply canceling their service, which would have been crude and temporary, I initiated an ownership transfer through the carrier's business portal. They now had exactly 72 hours to accept financial responsibility for their own communication devices, provide valid payment methods, and sign new individual contracts. If they failed to meet this deadline, every number except mine would automatically deactivate, leaving them scrambling to establish new service with whatever carrier would accept their compromised credit histories. Then the Wi-Fi mesh system I installed personally, their security cameras linked to my cloud infrastructure, my company's tools, their smart locks, thermostats, even the lawn irrigation schedule built on software I licensed for them. At 3:04 in the morning, I disabled their access. Quietly, no alert, just silence. At 3:26 in the morning, my sister texted me, "Why aren't the cameras working?" I didn't answer. The next phase required confronting the most substantial financial entanglement, the mortgage that had quietly anchored me to their dysfunction for 4 long years. I found myself settling deeper into my chair, the weight of this particular decision settling heavily on my shoulders as I stared at the loan documents displayed across my monitor. This wasn't just another monthly payment or streaming subscription. This was the cornerstone of their artificial stability, the foundation upon which their entire facade of middle-class respectability had been constructed. The memory of that original signing still burned clearly in my mind. 4 years ago, their credit scores had been so catastrophically damaged by years of financial irresponsibility that traditional lenders wouldn't have trusted them with a payday loan, let alone a mortgage for their dream house. I remembered the loan officer's barely concealed disgust as he reviewed their application, the way he'd shaken his head and muttered something about banks having standards for a reason. That's when they'd turned to me with those familiar expressions of manufactured desperation, explaining how much they needed this house, how it would change everything, how they just needed someone with decent credit to help them get started. But circumstances had shifted dramatically since then, and I now possessed leverage they'd never anticipated. I contacted the lending institution directly, formally requesting a comprehensive cosigner removal review, a process that would require fresh financial evaluations of all parties involved. The customer service representative who handled my call turned out to be someone I'd encountered. Professionally, I'd helped his company recover critical data from a corrupted server farm 2 years earlier, saving them hundreds of thousands in potential losses. Recognition worked in my favor as he personally expedited the review process, cutting through the usual bureaucratic delays. The results were more devastating than even I had anticipated. My parents' financial situation had deteriorated significantly since the original loan approval. Their combined income had plummeted due to my father's reduced client base and my mother's inability to maintain steady employment. Meanwhile, their debt-to-income ratio had ballooned beyond any reasonable lending standard, bloated by credit card balances, personal loans, and the very bills they'd been passing off to me. Without my financial backing and creditworthiness propping up their application, they couldn't qualify for a refinance at any respectable interest rate, if they could secure financing at all. The house they'd treated as their unshakable foundation would either become an impossible financial burden or slip away entirely. And for the first time in years, I found myself completely at peace with that reality. Their housing situation was no longer my responsibility to solve. Then I opened the spreadsheet. Yes, I had a spreadsheet because you don't survive a family like mine without receipts. Every account, every payment, every favor, every lie. I went line by line, my mom's new laptop leased through my business account, my dad's online accounting software still registered under my license, the family's shared password manager created and maintained by me. Each one terminated, removed, locked. It wasn't malicious, it was math. They'd outsourced their digital life to me, assuming I'd never pull the plug, but I did. Then came the emails. First, my parents' small accounting firm, the one I set up their back end for, free of charge. Second, my uncle's dental clinic, still using firewall and data redundancy protocols I designed 8 years ago. I opened our company admin portal, found both clients, and reclassified them as terminated. Their infrastructure, gone, not deleted, just removed from our systems. I wasn't sabotaging, I was resigning. I left a simple message in both dashboards. This system was maintained at no cost for over a decade. Effective today, access has been revoked. Thank you. At 4:42 in the morning, my phone started buzzing. Dad, 3 missed calls. Mom, 6 texts. Uncle, voicemail, we're locked out. Can you fix it? No, I could not. Maya was still beside me, watching quietly. Then she said, "They're not mad. They're scared." I nodded. They weren't angry because I'd cut them off. They were terrified because for the first time, I wasn't playing the role. I wasn't John the Fixer. I was John the Firewall. By 8 in the morning, my inbox was full. From the dental office manager, we can't access patient records. From the firm CPA, all our billing software is offline. From my mom, please just fix it. You're better than this. I didn't reply to any of them. Instead, I forwarded their contacts to a commercial IT firm I trusted and wrote, "They'll need a full system rebuild. Charge your standard rate plus emergency recovery." By noon, my financial advisor had transferred my assets into a trust, a new one, with a clause that explicitly excluded my parents and sister from any financial benefit. I wasn't just unplugging the machines, I was cutting the wires, welding them shut, and building a firewall so high they'd never climb it again. That afternoon, my sister tried calling. I let it ring. Then I got a text. Was it worth it? "You're alone now." Maya looked at it, then at me. "No, you're not." And that's when I realized this wasn't revenge. This was extraction. This was a rescue mission for myself. I wasn't punishing them. I was refusing to participate. They hadn't just used me, they drained me emotionally, called it love, and never noticed the cost. So I stopped. Stopped answering, stopped fixing, stopped pretending. And as the digital silence grew, they finally started to feel what I had felt for years, invisible. But unlike them, I wouldn't cry about it. I just let the silence speak louder than I ever could. They didn't react immediately. That's what surprised me. After I disabled access, rerouted the mortgage, revoked every system, and locked down everything they took for granted, the first 12 hours were silent. But by the evening of day one, the texts began to crawl in. From Mom, what happened to the thermostat? From Dad, why is the phone saying pending transfer? From my sister, you're being petty. We needed help, not drama. I ignored them, but I knew that was only the beginning because my family didn't know how to operate without control. And now they were floating in it, spinning in silence. And silence, for them, was louder than any explosion. On day two, the mask slipped. At exactly 9:04 in the morning, I got the first group message from Dad. You need to stop this. It's childish. Family helps each other. My sister, you're only upset because you didn't get your way. And my mom, a master of guilt-wrapped expectations, you think we owe you for things we never asked for. You're not a martyr, John. I read it 3 times, not because it hurt, but because it was so predictable, so scripted. They didn't even know they were repeating a pattern. I didn't answer. Instead, I opened my lawyer's email. He'd filed the paperwork that morning, removal of co-signature confirmed, asset transfer completed, restraining clause added to the trust fund effective immediately. Then, an unexpected surprise, an alert from my company's compliance team. Someone had tried accessing the old shared credentials to our infrastructure hub from an IP address registered to my uncle's office. I didn't need to guess. They were trying to backdoor their way in, regain access, patch the leaks. So I tightened security further, reissued new encryption protocols, notified legal, and then I made one final move. I forwarded everything to our external auditor, not just to protect myself, but to make it official. At 3:12 in the afternoon that day, the backlash started. Voicemail from Mom, you've destroyed your own family over what? Some bills. Voicemail from Dad, you'll regret this. You think these people you're talking to now will be there forever? They won't. We're your blood. And the most pathetic from my sister, you're clearly overwhelmed. We're worried about you. We're telling people you're just having a breakdown so they don't think worse. That one made me pause because it was a play I knew well. The he's not angry, he's unstable trick. The easiest way to discredit someone is to reframe their clarity as chaos. So I saved the message, downloaded it, archived it, forwarded it to my lawyer, then shut off my phone. By day 3, the smearing started. Cousin Ellie texted me, hey, you okay? Just saw something weird. She sent a screenshot, a vague post from my mother's Facebook page. It's always the quiet ones you have to worry about. Prayers for healing and guidance. Below it, 46 likes, 17 comments, mostly fake concern. One said, he was always so cold. I guess now we know why. Another, hope you're all safe. Let us know if you need anything. I wasn't tagged, but I didn't need to be. Everyone knew who it was about. I didn't comment, but Ellie did. She wrote, you relied on him until he couldn't take it anymore, and now you're acting like the victim. Shame on you. They deleted her comment within an hour, then blocked her. Day 4 was the escalation. An email from an unknown sender reached my company's HR inbox. Anonymous Gmail, no name, just a subject line, concern about John, internal fraud. Inside, a half-page of fabricated accusations, allegations of financial misconduct, data manipulation, even unauthorized access to client infrastructure. They wrote it like someone who knew corporate structure, legal triggers, and just enough buzzwords to sound dangerous. But they made one mistake. They referenced a client complaint from 2020, one that never existed. Because in 2020, I was on medical leave recovering from surgery. I pulled the email headers, traced the IP. Guess where it came from? My dad's office, same subnet used for their tax filing software. They tried to destroy my career, the very system that paid for their luxuries. So, I did what they feared most. I went public, not with drama, with receipts. That evening, I posted a thread. No names, no finger-pointing, just facts. A list of systems I created and maintained, screenshots of the payments I'd made over the years, a redacted summary of the attempted smearing email, including timestamp and IP trace. A simple sentence to close it. Sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is cancel the subscriptions they didn't even know you were paying for. By midnight, it had 2,000 shares, 500 comments, dozens of DMs, people telling their own stories, people recognizing the pattern, people saying thank you. I thought I was alone. My mom saw it. She emailed me the next morning, subject line, we need to talk, please. The body, you've always been so cold. I didn't know it hurt you this much. Can't we fix this before it gets worse? I forwarded it to my lawyer, then blocked her email. Day 6, they showed up. Literally knocked on Maya's door at 7:48 in the evening, Mom, Dad, and my sister, standing like a sad version of an intervention crew. Maya answered, didn't invite them in. Dad tried to step past her. She blocked him. We just want to talk, my mom said. It doesn't have to be like this. But it did. I stood behind Maya, calm, unmoving. You said I ruined every holiday, every gathering, that you didn't need me. Mom's face dropped. My sister stepped forward. We were upset. You know how holidays are. And now that the mortgage is bouncing and the cloud system is offline, you suddenly care. Silence. Then my dad exploded. You're acting like some big shot. You think this is power? You think money makes you important? I looked him in the eye. No, but cutting off people who treat me like trash, that makes me free. They didn't respond. They left, eventually. And as they backed out of the driveway, my mom shouted, "You'll regret this!" I turned to Maya. No, they will. I didn't plan to go public. Not really. I didn't want the spectacle, didn't crave the attention. But I realized something on day 7. Silence wasn't enough anymore. Not when they were actively rewriting the narrative. They weren't just smearing me behind closed doors. They were smearing me professionally, socially, telling people I was unwell, that I'd snapped, that I was unstable, dangerous, and worst of all, that they did nothing wrong. So I did what they never expected. I published everything. No rage, no rants, just a Google Drive folder labeled Transparency with 6 subfolders, financials, screenshots of every recurring payment I covered for the past decade, access logs showing infrastructure setups, login credentials, IP addresses used to breach them, audio, a voice message from my sister calling me a walking disappointment, screenshots, texts from my parents mocking my disability after my surgery, legal, the restraining order filings and proof of the false fraud report submitted against me. They called it help, a spreadsheet labeled every time I helped and what I got in return. Then I wrote one paragraph. Just one. This isn't revenge. This isn't drama. This is the truth. When someone spends years being treated like a tool and they finally put the wrench down, it doesn't make them broken. It makes them human. I shared the link on my private profile. No tags, no names, just the truth. Within 48 hours, it spread like fire in a dry forest. People shared their own stories. People connected dots I hadn't even drawn. A former neighbor messaged me, "I always wondered why you never showed up to their parties. Now I know." One of my dad's clients forwarded the post to their office manager, asking if the firm was still stable given the leadership chaos. My sister's fiance's boss emailed me, asking if there was any reason we should be concerned about Mark's reputation based on recent circulating documents. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that part. Mark, my sister's ex-fiancé. Yes, ex. He was part of the fraud attempt. I traced the email, the burner account, the VPN slip-up, the phone metadata. So I handed everything over to my attorney and let him do what attorneys do best. I forwarded it to Mark's employer. His contract was suspended within 24 hours. That wasn't revenge either, it was alignment. When you build on falsehoods, don't be shocked when the truth eventually catches up. Then came the calls. "Uncle Mike, first, you didn't have to go for a clean and final separation," I replied. "Then you shouldn't have poured gasoline on the bridge. Then Aunt Renee, you could have come to us directly. You sat at the table while they joked about me. That was directly. But the one that hit hardest was Grandpa Joe. He didn't call. He showed up, unannounced again, walked in with a copy of the printed documents in his hand, looked at me, no anger, no pity, just nodded, and said, 'I told them it would come out someday. They just didn't think you'd be the one to say it.' I asked him, 'Do they get it now?' He laughed, bitter and tired. 'No, but everyone else does. And that's enough.' The power had shifted, not because I shouted, but because I refused to stay quiet. They called me broken for walking away. Now they were the ones explaining why the internet was calling them people who consistently denied the truth and blamed others for the fallout. Now they had to explain to clients why systems were failing, why the son they loved had filed an injunction, why no one in the family returned their calls anymore. Because truth has a way of doing what guilt never can, ending the illusion.